Google, based here in California, has created an uproar by firing an engineer who wrote an internal memo challenging the company's diversity efforts and saying female staffers fill only 20% of its high-tech jobs, in part because of biological differences, not discrimination. Google CEO said he terminated James Damore for, quote, advancing harmful gender stereotypes in our workplace. Damore said in interviews he's not a sexist and accused Google of illegal retaliation in a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board. He said people got offended because Silicon Valley is, again quoting, a progressive echo chamber, and his comments go against the left's ideology. Molly Hemingway, talk about media groupthink. The overall coverage basically portrays this guy as a sexist creep.
It was really interesting how so many people in the media portrayed his memo, which was arguing about how to make diversity practices better or how to be more responsive to the very real biological differences between men and women. But the way the media characterized this was they kept calling it an anti-diversity memo. It's clearly not that if you read it. And that's what was so interesting about it. You could read it. This was a memo that went viral. It was long, but you could read it yourself and you could see that the way it was portrayed by various media outlets was incorrect.
Let's hear a little bit from James Damore in one of his interviews. Let's roll it.
I'm not saying that any of the female engineers at Google are in any way worse than the average male engineer. In fact, I'm just saying that this may explain some of the disparity in representation in the population.
So James Damore also writes that women are more neurotic than men and that this is a factor in their employment. I can see where a lot of people would find that offensive.
Well, there are all sorts of things you might take issue with there. Even his understanding of what social science says about differences between men and women can be argued with. But the overall memo was about how to do a better job with diversity programs and how to deal with the reality that men and women are different. This is a thing that many people in the media don't actually accept, or they try and fight against all the time. Men and women are distinct, they're different, they have on average differences that show up in all sorts of scientific analysis, and this isn't a bad thing. This is actually, I think, a good thing. And women and men have on average different strengths, and they're going to choose different career paths, and they're going to choose to be in those career paths in different ways. And that is anathema to a lot of people in the media.
Right. Google canceled a planned staff meeting on the subject because of threats that people who participated will be identified and therefore will be subjected to online abuse. Now, James Damore, it's interesting. It seemed like he's kind of milking his 15 minutes, wrote an op-ed piece for the Wall Street Journal. He was wearing a T-shirt that turned the Google logo into Gulag. Has the company, this tech giant, sort of unintentionally turned him into a media hero in some circles? Well,
certainly. And I mean, he was fired after Google asked for feedback on these programs. They have these online, they have these resources where people are supposed to give feedback. He did, and then he got fired. I don't know if that's milking it to be upset about it. At the same time, I think it resonates with so many people because a lot of people in the country feel like they're not free to talk through different issues, to engage, to disagree, to differ with what some elite viewpoints are. And so people feel this at their own workplaces. They feel it on social media. And so that's why I think this has taken off and come to have a life of its own.
Yeah, that's a great point that you made about this memo. Anybody can read it, and yet it has been characterized in a certain way by so many in the press. Molly Hemingway, great to see you as always.
Thanks.